Hello, I'm Chuck Martin, and welcome to the Voices of the Internet of Things. With me today is Sam Bousfield, CEO of Samson Sky. Sam has been owner of Samson Motorworks and CEO of the company as well. He has a background in architecture and aeronautical design, is the author of numerous patents, and has been involved in wind tunnel design testing. Since 2008, Sam has been CEO of Samson Sky, where he has worked on the creation and development of the Switchblade flying car. Welcome, Sam.
Hey, thank you, Chuck.
So you've been doing this for some time. Tell me, why did this start as an idea of having a flying car?
Well, I guess I was looking at the future of things and what I wanted to do, and I had just gotten done with a bit of work with some Boeing engineers on a high-speed aircraft design. It's one of my inventions that I'd been working on, and I started to look at the future and see what is the future of transportation really going to be. And often it's what's known as the artists dream the future, and the engineers kind of hurry to catch up, right? So that's what I saw as the future is portrayed, Star Wars, Star Trek, Fifth Element, that kind of thing, as pretty much all in the air, and then the ground is reserved for walking or the occasional delivery of goods and whatnot. But it is that as a future, I think even in the Jetsons, most of the Jetsons, when they first put that out, they had escalators, they had phone watches, they had all kinds of things that all have come to pass except for the flying car. So, hey, we have to do that. And so that's what I looked at, saw the future of travel was in the air. And my thought process took me that for quite some time, we're going to need something that does a little of both because you still have so much happening on the ground. You've got to interact with that. And in the air, that's the future. So you have to take into account the flying port. So it's something that would do a little of both.
So 15 years ago, did you think it would take this long?
Oh, absolutely not. I don't know if I knew what it was going to take, I don't know if I would have started it. But we started it, and I finished things when I started them. So it was a bit of an awakening to me to see how hard it was to actually do something that had to be good at the ground and good at the air. There's this idea floating out there. One of our biggest hurdles was to counter this idea that's out in society that a flying car means that it's going to be a mediocre car or a mediocre plane or both. And we didn't buy that. We just didn't agree with that. So we set the bar for high performance in both modes. And it took a little longer than we thought to get there, but we recently flew and there you go.
So this, yeah, I've seen it fly and drive. So it obviously this is beyond an idea right now. How is it fueled and how is it powered?
Sure, we have one engine that powers the wheels on the ground and the propeller in the air. The wheels are used for takeoff, so you can actually accelerate with the wheels much faster than with a propeller. So we use the wheels to get you up to takeoff speed, then they phase out, the propeller phases in, and you take off under propeller power and land the same way.
And you don't need much of an airport to land this?
Well, you do need, I think we land in 700 feet and take off in about 1,100 feet right now. It's taking off a little faster than that in our test flights, so we might be better than we thought.
So is that basically local airports for people?
Yeah, there's 5,000 there's 5,000 public use airports and about 8,000 private airports around the US. Most of the 5,000 public airports are, at least 2,000 feet long. They're usually between 2,000 and 5,000 feet for the general public airports. And then you get bigger when they're kind of more regional airport.
And you've got like thousands of orders for these things from around the world. How do people find out about this?
Well, we do hardly any marketing. It's funny. We didn't really want to have a big backlog until we were closer to production because then people are just waiting a long time. So we advertise, it's like $200 a month on Facebook or something. It's really ridiculous. And that was aimed really at pilots because originally we thought pilots were pretty much our market. And, there's 600,000 pilots in the US. That's a fair size market. We could live with that. And that's what we surveyed when we first started off. We just surveyed existing pilots and found a good response from them. And that's really where we were heading. We did find over the last few years that more and more non-pilots were reserving Switchblades. And it kind of floored us because we didn't know how they're learning about it. And so that caused us to kind of take a new look. We did another round of surveys about a year ago. We did the existing pilots again just to have as a side check, but then we also researched and did market surveys into this group of regional travelers in the United States. There's about 21 million people who are regional travelers
That's
taking.
a lot of people.
It's a big number, and they take a lot of trips. It's like, I don't know, 189 million trips a year, something like that, 200 to 500 miles range.
And are these business trips, personal or both?
It's all combination. I mean, a lot of those are business. A lot of them are just people visiting relatives or going someplace with their spouse or special person and
So do you
having.
think you think people are going to buy some of these for and actually use them for business use so they can have their business buy it for them?
I think so. I think it'd be an awesome business tool. And if you just look at it, if you're in a space where you've got another big city, but it's a little ways away, it's like 100 miles or something, it's hard to reach. But all of a sudden, you have something that'll get you there in a half an hour. That could make a good case for it. Or guys who usually spend their life on the road, sales guys or service techs or something like that, where they're constantly, a week out and then weekends at home with their family. This could make a big difference for them because now they can go out, make 2 or 3 calls, and then still return the end of the day to be with their family and be there almost every day. I think that would really go a long ways towards people's lifestyles.
I would think a pilot would be very attracted to this because they're used to flying to another airport and then having no car.
Oh yeah, I know that it's just a rub. My wife and I went up to Hood River from where we are in Central Oregon. Hood River's at the very north part along the Columbia up there. Really pretty apple orchards and stuff. We reserved the airport car ahead of time, which you can't always do, but I did phone and say, "Hey, making the trip special to come up there. Can you please have it ready?" And they did. They put the keys out for me, and another pilot came in and said, "Oh, look, car keys." Took it out for a spin. So yeah, we were left, flew up there on purpose and had nowhere to go. So that's kind of what you run into. You take your
So do you have your
chances.
pilot's license?
I do. I fly a Beach Bonanza right now, and it's a really great tool. But again, every time you go someplace, you're at the mercy of what you find at the airport when you land there.
So to fly this thing, does someone have to be a pilot?
You do. You need a private pilot's license to fly it. That takes about 40 hours of in the air flight training and some ground school. But the nice part about the Switchblade, you can actually buy the Switchblade ahead of time and then use it as your aircraft for flight training. And I think it's smart because a person's first plane that they fly in and train in their first time, really it sinks in because you're really absorbing it all as you're getting into flying, and you really remember your first plane. So if that being a Switchblade, you should be doing really well off, and it'll save you about half the cost of getting a license.
I would think as your business take off, the pilot schools are going to be really happy about you.
I hope so. We have several people that want to send their trainers, their certified flight instructors over to get checked out in the Switchblade so that they can help people learn to fly in the Switchblade. So I think it'll be really, really good.
And as a road vehicle, this would just pull up to a gas station and get fuel.
Yes, I mean, just think about it. Most aircraft use still leaded fuel, right? It's 100 low lead, but it still has lead in it. So we could not imagine that we would be okay, or EPA would be okay with us driving around neighborhoods burning leaded fuel. So we had to come up with something, an engine that would be suitable for the air, but also work for the EPA and be reasonably responsible for things on the ground. And it took a little while. We went through 3 engines, finally got this one, had to modify it. So we modified it with 2 computers, 2 fuel pumps, 2 water pumps, and a very special tune on the computer for this particular use. So we kind of took over the engine, even though it's made by another. We take over the warranty and the liability of that.
This sounds like there's a lot of development work. I mean, you did wind tunnel work. I mean, you've done a whole lot of work over the years.
Yes, and even though it's an experimental aircraft and not a certified aircraft through the FAA, we still designed and tested to certified standards. We built some of our own test equipment to do that. My personal favorite was the drop test for suspension. It is the most grueling test. You swear you're gonna just smash it to smithereens because you raise it up on a guillotine-like thing with a ton of weight on it to match what the FAA requirements are for our speed and and weight of vehicle. And then you just pull the cord and you cross your fingers. On the way down, it goes smash on the ground and everything's just quivering and smoking like it's holy cow. We passed first time everything. And so that was really, really good. I mean, I don't know anyone who's ever done that. So, hey, hats off to us, right?
So when do you start selling these things and moving them out of a production facility?
Well, production, like Elon Musk says, that's the toughest nut to crack. And I think that's what we're pushing on right now. Where we've been for the last little bit while we've been wrapping up the flight testing to get it up and get that final video flight that we could show the world. Yes, we flew and it flies just fine and just like a champion.
Yeah, the flight
But
looked very normal.
it is, and the test pilot said the same. He said this is an honest aircraft. It just you tell it what to do and it does it. So I'm really happy with the results. Doesn't mean that we aren't going to improve a few things. I mean, it isn't perfect. We will be improving a few things, but yes, we had to show that and improve as we went along all these years. I think one of the advantages of having lasted so long and taken a bit of time to get this finally done is that technology has increased quite a bit in 15 years. There's been some improvements in avionics, the flight instruments, where right now we have a parachute for the whole vehicle, right? It's one of the things you can get as an option, but it weighs 55 pounds. It's a lot of fuel. So if you want to have the safety of extra fuel, you just forego the parachute. And the avionics these days, one of them has a little button you can push. If you run out of fuel in the air, your engine quits. You push the button and it all this time you're flying along and it's looking and seeing what's around you airport wise, where the wind's coming from, how far you are off the ground. And it says, okay, based on what I see here, this over here is the right airport for us to land at. And it starts gliding you right to that airport to land. And it radios ahead and says, hey, by the way, we're having troubles. Make way. Here we come. And so meanwhile, the pilot can sit there and go, okay, well, what happened here? Why the engine quit? And he or she can concentrate on that. And that is probably a more successful way to go. And I think almost as good as a parachute, not quite, but almost.
So being a pilot, has that helped you in terms of how you approach this whole business?
Well, I wasn't a pilot when I started it. Funny thing, I learned as I went in, and I probably was 3 years into it when I realized, I'm designing an aircraft and I don't fly. I think that's an out point. I think I do something about that. So I started learning to fly, and I've been flying since, and really enjoy it a lot. Flying up.
So
Have you done it?
once this is ready, is that what you'll be flying?
Oh yeah, I would really love to. We will. The next thing is build 3 production prototypes, and then try to break them. So we'll tour them out in the countryside, give people rides and flies for test drives and test flies, and promote with them, but also just beat them up because you want to break things early. If we're going to be setting up production and you build 100 of them, and yet they still have that one piece in there that is going to break, then you got to replace it all, and then you have unhappy customers. We're going to try and do it a different way.
So long term, what do you see this happen? You look at going for certification of it down the road, or moving to electrification, or like what's the longer term view if you have that?
Sure. We started off originally designing this as a hybrid electric, and at those days there weren't the motors lightweight enough to do it, and the batteries, of course, still aren't good enough to handle the kind of performance that we have as a mission, for the vehicle's mission. But we are putting out a hybrid electric version for our production. So the first production units will be a hybrid electric. And we'll go full electric as soon as we can. We'd like to. It's just the batteries they're just not strong enough or light enough to really count for much for right now. So that's really where we're headed with that as far as production goes.
So when do you think you're going to be moving these out of a facility for someone to actually take possession of it? 2025?
Probably 2 years from now. I think we got to spend 18 months finishing off with production engineering. How do you make thousands of these to keep up with demand? And then go ahead and build the 3 production prototypes based on that. And then we'll start setting up a production plant and starting a limited run of vehicles while we build up the bigger capacity. And then right after that, roll right up into some good numbers so we can catch up with the guys who are already waiting for the Switchblade.
Well, I look forward to keeping up with your progress. Please keep me posted. Thank you so much, Sam, and thank you all for listening to the Voices of the Internet of Things.
You bet. Thank you for having me.